There is a moment that arrives without ceremony. A moment when you realize you are no longer holding on. Not to the people who hurt you. Not to the relationships that drained you. Not to the hope that things will somehow be different. Not even to the person you used to be. You have simply let go. And the letting go happens so quietly that you almost missed it. This is the last phase of awakening. And Carl Jung understood it as the completion of a journey most people never finish. Because letting go is not what you think it is. It is not a decision you make one day. It is not a dramatic moment where you declare yourself free. It is a gradual release that happens in layers, in stages, in tiny deaths that accumulate until one day you wake up and realize you are no longer carrying what once felt impossible to put down. You spent years holding on. Holding on to people who showed you exactly who they were, but you kept believing they would change. Holding on to relationships that required you to betray yourself just to maintain them. Holding on to the belief that if you just loved hard enough, gave enough, understood enough, sacrificed enough, it would finally be enough. But it never was. And somewhere deep inside, you always knew it never would be. Still, you held on. Because letting go felt like failure. Like giving up. Like admitting you wasted years on something that was never going to work. Like proving everyone right who said you were too trusting, too sensitive, too willing to see the best in people who only showed you their worst. Jung taught that we cannot change anything unless we accept it. For years, you could not accept that some people will not heal. That some relationships are not meant to be saved. That some love is not enough to overcome fundamental incompatibility. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away. So you stayed. You held on. You kept trying. You kept hoping. You kept believing that breakthrough was just around the corner. That if you could just find the right words, the right approach, the right amount of patience, everything would click into place. But the last phase of awakening is when you finally stop. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself more than you care about saving people who do not want to be saved. You remember when the shift began. It was not sudden. It was subtle. Small moments when you noticed you were not rushing to respond to their messages anymore. When you realized their crisis did not activate your rescue response the way it used to. When you caught yourself feeling relieved that they did not call instead of hurt that they did not reach out. These were the early signs of letting go. Your nervous system was releasing them before your mind caught up. Jung believed that the unconscious knows things the conscious mind refuses to see. Your unconscious knew long before you admitted it that this person was not good for you. That this relationship was draining your life force. That staying meant continuing to abandon yourself. And slowly, quietly, without your permission, your unconscious began the process of letting go. You felt it in your body first. The tightness in your chest when their name appeared on your phone. The exhaustion that swept over you when you knew you would see them. The relief you felt when plans got cancelled. Your body was telling you what your heart was not ready to hear. Let go. This is killing you. You deserve better than this. But you were not ready to listen. Not yet. Because letting go meant facing something terrifying. It meant accepting that you had given years of your life to something that was never going to give back. That you had poured your best self into people who did not have the capacity to receive it. That you had been hoping for a version of them that did not exist and likely never would. This acceptance is brutal. It is the death that Jung spoke of. The death of illusion. The death of fantasy. The death of the future you had imagined with someone who was never capable of creating it with you. And you have to grieve that death. You have to mourn the relationship you wanted but never had. You have to cry for the person you hoped they would become. You have to release the dream of what could have been if only they had been different. If only you had been enough. If only love had been sufficient. The last phase of awakening is when you finally let yourself feel this grief without trying to fix it or explain it away or convince yourself it was not that bad. You let yourself feel the full weight of what you lost. Not just the person, but the time. The energy. The pieces of yourself you gave away that you can never get back. Jung said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. This pain is the price of awakening. And you are paying it now. feeling it fully, letting it move through you instead of around you. And something miraculous happens when you stop running from the pain. It transforms. The grief becomes wisdom. The loss becomes clarity. The ending becomes a beginning. You start to see that letting go is not about them anymore. It is about you. About reclaiming the energy you have been bleeding into people and situations that do not deserve it. About redirecting your love toward people who can actually receive it. About finally, after all these years, choosing yourself. This choosing feels strange at first. Foreign. Almost selfish. Because you have spent your entire life choosing everyone else. Prioritizing their needs. Managing their emotions. Making yourself smaller so they could feel bigger. And now you are doing the opposite. You are letting go of the belief that your worth is determined by how much you can give. You are releasing the need to prove yourself through endless sacrifice. You are dropping the story that love means suffering, that connection requires self-betrayal, that being an empath means being available to everyone who asks. Jung taught that the meeting with oneself is one of the most unpleasant things that can be avoided. In the last phase of awakening, you stop avoiding this meeting. You sit with yourself. You ask the hard questions. Why did I stay so long? Why did I accept so little? Why did I believe I deserved this treatment? Why did I think loving them was more important than loving myself? And you answer honestly. Without self-judgment. Without shame. Just honest acknowledgement of the patterns that kept you trapped and the beliefs that made you believe you had no choice but to stay. But you did have a choice. You always did. And in the last phase of awakening, you finally make it. You choose to let go. Not with bitterness. Not with anger. Not even with sadness anymore. Just with the quiet certainty of someone who has finally realized that holding on is hurting them more than letting go ever could. This is the moment everything changes. The letting go continues in ways you do not expect. It is not one moment. It is 1,000 small releases that happen over weeks and months. Each one peeling away another layer of attachment. Another thread of hope. Another piece of the person you were when you still believed you could save them. You let go of checking their social media to see if they are thinking about you. You let go of replaying conversations to figure out what you did wrong. You let go of crafting the perfect message that will finally make them understand. You let go of waiting for them to realize what they lost. And with each release, you feel lighter. Not immediately. At first, each letting go feels like loss. Like you are giving up on something precious. But then the space where that attachment used to be fills with something unexpected. Peace. Carl Jung believed that what we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end of holding on is the beginning of living. Really living. Not the half-life you were existing in while waiting for someone to choose you. But full, vibrant, present living where you are finally available to your own experience. You start noticing things you had stopped seeing. The way morning light comes through your window. The taste of coffee when you are not drinking it while anxious about someone else. The sound of your own thoughts when they are not drowned out by someone else's chaos. The feeling of your own company when you are not using it as a waiting room for someone else's attention. This presence is what Jung called individuation. The process of becoming who you actually are instead of who you have been performing to be. And it only becomes possible when you let go of the people and patterns that required you to be someone else. The last phase of awakening is when you realize that letting go of them meant you finally got to hold on to yourself. You remember the version of you that existed in that relationship. How small you made yourself. How quiet. How accommodating. How you edited your joy so it would not threaten them. How you hid your pain so it would not burden them. How you performed ease when you were breaking inside. That version of you is gone now. And you are not sad about it. Because that version was never really you. It was a construction. A survival mechanism. A way of being that allowed you to stay in something that was slowly killing you. Jung taught that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. In letting go of them, you are accepting yourself. The real you. The one who has needs and boundaries and limits. The one who cannot fix everyone. The one who is allowed to walk away when staying means betraying yourself. This acceptance does not happen all at once. Some days you wake up and feel completely free. Other days the grief returns and you question whether you made the right choice. This is normal. This is part of the process. Letting go is not linear. It is a spiral. You revisit the same feelings at different depths until they finally release completely. But each time you revisit them, you are stronger. Each time the pull to reach out gets weaker. Each time the fantasy of reconciliation loses more of its power. Until one day you realize you have not thought about them in hours. Then days. Then weeks. And when you do think about them, it is with the detached curiosity of someone remembering a dream. You can barely connect to the person who stayed so long, who tolerated so much, who believed that love meant enduring instead of enjoying. Jung said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. You faced yours. You looked at all the ways you betrayed yourself, and instead of turning away in shame, you acknowledged it. You forgave yourself for it. You learned from it. This is the completion of the awakening. Not just letting go of them, but letting go of the judgment you held against yourself for staying. Letting go of the belief that you were weak, or stupid, or too trusting. Letting go of the shame that kept you small. You were not weak. You were loving. You were not stupid. You were hopeful. You were not too trusting. You were authentic in a relationship with someone who was performing. And now you know the difference. You can spot performance from miles away. You recognize when someone's words do not match their energy. You notice when someone is accessing your empathy without offering reciprocity. You see the patterns before they fully form. This discernment is the gift of letting go. You have been educated by pain, refined by loss, strengthened by the very thing that tried to break you. The last phase of awakening is when you understand that nothing was wasted. Not the years. Not the love. Not the pain. It was all preparation for this moment. This version of you. The one who can love deeply and walk away completely. The one who can feel everything and still protect their peace. The one who knows their worth is not determined by whether someone else can see it. Jung believed that the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect but by the play instinct. You are creating something new now. A life that is yours. Not shared with someone who diminished you. Not built around someone else's limitations. But fully, completely, unapologetically yours. And in this life, you discover what you could never find while holding on. You discover that you are enough. Not because someone finally chose you, but because you finally chose yourself. You discover that your empathy is more powerful when it is protected. That your love is more potent when it is selective. That your presence is more valuable when you are not giving it to people who take it for granted. The people who are still in your life notice the change. You are different now. Clearer. Calmer. More solid. Less available to chaos. Less willing to absorb what is not yours. Less interested in saving people who are comfortable drowning. Some people will not like this version of you. The ones who benefited from your people-pleasing. The ones who enjoyed your endless availability. The ones who preferred you when you were still trying to earn love instead of expecting it as a baseline. Let them go too. Because the last phase of awakening includes releasing everyone who cannot meet you at this new level. Everyone who needs you to stay small for them to feel big. Everyone who requires your dimness for their light to show. You are done making yourself less so others can feel like more. Jung taught that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. You have claimed that privilege. Through pain. Through loss. Through the brutal honesty of facing yourself and choosing yourself anyway. The empath who has completed the last phase of awakening is not the same person who entered it. They have been transformed by the fire of letting go. What burned away was everything false. What remains is pure. True. Unshakable. You are no longer the person who holds on when they should walk away. You are no longer the person who mistakes suffering for love. You are no longer the person who needs external validation to know their worth. You are the person who let go. Who faced the grief and survived it. Who chose themselves even when it meant disappointing everyone else. who understood that some endings are necessary for new beginnings to emerge. And you are free now. Not because they are gone, but because you finally released the version of yourself that believed you needed them to be whole.